The Live Artist think tank will take place at Untitled 2021 on September 25th at 3 p.m. Artists Nathalie Anguezomo Mba Bikoro, Chinasa Vivian Ezugha, Joseph Morgan Schofield, Benjamin Sebastian and Verena Stenke will join me in the conversation, expressing their ideas and concerns on the present and the future. To introduce the think tank, I thought to tackle shortly the concept of freedom that broadly informs our practices as live artists, precisely about the idea that freedom is not abstraction, but a fact intimately linked to relations. Thus, the importance to strive and persist in practicing relational freedom for societal changes. In every age, each generation tends to believe to be the upgraded one. Probably it is right to think so. Yet, if you look attentively at history, there are discrepancies and gaps, U-turns and hairpin bends. Indeed, every generation has its fight, because seeking for new values to overcome stale norms that they feel do not correspond to them. To struggle and change for the better and evolve is ingrained in our human nature, for we are social and political animals. The question is which tools, moreover with how much awareness, this ethical struggle should be fought to bring positive results. The effort never ends. Every generation is children of their time before their dreams escape them away. My dream has always been of freedom, but freedom is never definitive. Each person and each generation must conquer their own. I remember how my generation began losing sight of the present for being constantly projected to live in the future. We became the inevitable mistake of our time. We realized too late we were the embodiment of the culmination of the imperialist, colonial, capitalist, industrial social error. We didn't recognize or pretended not to understand and admit that we were just remorseful of what we hadn't done and we couldn't do anymore. We were feeding a system that many of us intimately disliked. Our failure has been to continue the path of the previous generations who did or came out from the Second World War. Together with them, we went to the peace assault in the name of acquiring and accumulating material wealth. We competed against each other in the name of progress. We struggled mainly to pursue and secure a successful career at any cost, despite the other's needs, uncaring of guaranteeing equity, fairness, and equal respect for differences, diversities, and minorities. The evident outcomes, especially in the Western countries, were no longer weapons but similarly hard-hitting approaches, aggressive marketing strategies, political corruption, and wild economic speculation, yet mostly favoring elitist interest. No flags, but brands and logos, however perpetrating havocs again, Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, to secure their resources and inexpensive labor force for our gain and advantage. When a generation presumes that human history and life on Earth have epitomized into them and their time, they self-aggrandize themselves, and by doing so, they put an end to the quest of freedom itself, caging it into the situation and circumstances they have created. It is no way out where to compete against each other with our respective truths. Others will come and prove them irrelevant, if not wrong. Conversely, life and existence keep shaking ad infinitum, but not constantly in the same way. The quest for truth will continually steer, for it rolls with our dreams, action, and all types of experimentation to realize our dreams. At the same time, their result, cause and effect fuel its dynamics. Is the truth of human existence to chasing dreams after dreams. We see countries, coalitions that crowd the planet with respective dominations. We long for peace, non-violence, and democracy, but we are more violent than before. Democracy is gasping for breath on many fronts. Even the idea of freedom has become a sort of restraining. Criticism of power structures often remain unheard or become opportunities for those same structures to turn them around for their benefit. Wars, genocides, mayhems, forced displacement, environmental disaster caused by us, the moderns, have been unprecedented in scale, number, intensity, corrupting the fundamental ethos and which civil societies should be found. Cultures are being cancelled. With the debris of the elusive postmodern era and the rise of the Homo technologicus, the gifts of the spirit, consciousness, and inner self are forgotten or denied, lost in the infinite space of deliberate judgments, material desires, and cravings. We have built the ideas of globalism, multiplicity, pluralism on that existential wreckage, like castles of cards amidst shifting sands. We have become the cause of persistent crisis. Nothing is worth trying to intervene just on a crisis symptoms without grasping its origin. That is the incapability to put freedom in practice as an engine of a collective societal change, and therefore the propeller of a more just and civil society. Reading and interpreting liberty in a just way can lead to the decisive political and epochal changes over time. Significant in any discussion of human rights are the core freedoms of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that directly concern individuals and all people, influencing their peaceful existence as human beings within or outside their country. These freedoms include freedom from discrimination and fear, freedom of want, freedom from slavery, torture, degrading treatment, arbitrary arrest, exile, interference with privacy, family, home, correspondence, freedom of belief, religion, conscience, opinion, speech, expression, information, assembly, and association. Freedom from state or personal interference in all the rights specified in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where community duties are essential to our society's free and full development. What emerged from this list, still incomplete, is that freedom is not a mere personal achievement, even in most individual societies. It is fundamentally relational. Relation enables you to do something that you cannot previously do, and that is freedom. To care for other people's freedom is relational, and that is love. That love that can change the state of things. Freedom as a legal status always relates to a group and to the areas in which this normative rule is exercised, contradicting the common misconception that freedom merely means an individual that can choose and decide in total autonomy without relating to anything else but themselves only. Freedom is not a capricious, irresponsible wandering. It is a complex interconnectedness that involves interiority and external reality. Thus, inner and outer constraints, thought, education, expression, the breadth of one's possibility, the stability of one's positions. Freedoms are reins to be held firm. If they get out of hand or someone takes them away, it's necessary to take action to earn them back. Freedoms are not indifferent laxity, but profoundly ethical, civil, cultural, socio-political issues, a state of effort that we are all called to exercise, not simply for our pleasure or benefit, but for the love of those close to us and what is just. Isaiah Berlin wrote that the essence of liberty is always laying in the ability to choose as you wish to choose, because you wish so to choose, uncoerced, unbullied, not swallowed up in some vast system, and in the right to resist, to be unpopular, to stand up for your conviction, merely because they are your conviction. That is true freedom, and without it, there is neither freedom of any kind, nor even the illusion of it. By the word freedom, Isaiah Berlin didn't simply refer to the condition by which people can make decisions of their own volition, in complete autonomy, to devise an action of the ends and tools they deem helpful to achieve it. He focused on freedom as the outcome of social processes and human interaction. Berlin's understanding of freedom becomes a reality in society, developed through establishing the constitution and law, thus through collective action, relational methods to contrast violation and abuses. In the international context, human rights are generally understood this way. Is freedom a forced state because energy governs our body, which in time must wear out? To exercise freedom as relational requires mental power and moral qualities to be diffused in society. T.S. Eliot wrote that freedom is only real when it appears against an artificial limitation, when it is restricted about what came before and what is to come. The idea that freedom presupposes the absence of external and internal constraints is illogical. Societies and human beings are constantly subdued to limitation. Freedom should be the possibility to relate, respond within rules in society. Thus, the responsibility of moving with and against other in shifting biases, prejudice, stereotypes, perspective. Yet freedom is not merely from norms and arbitrary rules, nor to exercise one's rights, neglecting others' rights. Freedom as a courageous response to fear, ability to love, humbleness to listen, admit mistakes, meet each other where we strain. We are dependent upon each other, and that requires a mutual understanding that acknowledges interconnection. It doesn't mean there isn't a place for personal freedom. Personal freedom is essential. It exists within deep social constructs and identities that we cannot do without them. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the centrality of human relations emerged, for they were suddenly deprived. As human beings, we need individuality and privacy, but we also have a natural need for social communalism, precisely because we are socio-political animals. Our natural state is to interact. When social interaction is taken away, loneliness and depression have the upper hand. With restrictions and forced confinement, we realized how limited our personal freedom has become. Not traveling, being together, and visiting friends. The exponential use of digital tools has alleviated these deprivations, but it has also highlighted the precarity of our freedom. I don't trivialize the preciousness of interacting virtually, but in forced lockdowns, I've learned how valuable it is to have in-person direct essential interaction. Being cut off from it altogether allows me to discern the inadequacy of the internet as a substitute for actual freedom, to be intimately in relationships with others, making more of a point of human connection, physically reaching one another. Cultivating freedom to thrive and be authentic is a relational practice. Contrariwise, fierce independence can bring solitude into every crevice of one's life. In relationships, we encounter misunderstandings and struggles, conflicts, and these are negative things because on the other side of them sits intimacy. The freedom to ignite the right conversation is birthing ground for more profound levels of connection and move out vulnerabilities constitutional to our being. For relational psychologist Stern, when two or more people form an interpersonal landscape, they can approach their suffering differently, releasing dysfunctional patterns detrimental to their lives. It's there where real relational freedom is, that responding to loving kindness, equanimity, wisdom, removing obstacles together to live with greater compassion, ease, and connect with our true nature. Yet if freedom is relational, does it mean my freedom is also your freedom? Does it end where yours starts? And who draws the line where to meet? When there is conflict, freedoms collide inevitably. One prevails over the other. Still, it's relational. For anarchist philosopher William Gills, your freedom is my freedom because freedom tolerates no divisions, accepts no adjectives, belongs to no one. There is simply freedom or constraint, liberation or rulership. Still, it is evident we are not all equally free. Is freedom also a question of privilege? To say your freedom ends where mine begins involves coercion, limitation, prohibition, the beginning of an authoritarian chain of events. If my freedom ends where yours begins, we should determine who should assume the right to decide your freedom and mine. Does our respective brutal muscle strength establish this, or its bureaucratic substitute, which legislates and imposes bans for the benefit and safeguard of someone and to the detriment of someone else? Perhaps one can say I'm truly free when all the others are too, as Russian philosopher Bakunin exposed. Every enslavement of man is a limit on my freedom. I am a free man only so far as I recognize the humanity and liberty of all men around me. In respecting their humanity, I respect my own. That is, we should learn how to walk on the path of freedom together, hand in hand, although self-managing our lives independently. Yet we have become too accustomed to passively accepting norms from above and the capitalist illusion that money can buy more freedom. We still misuse the concept due to our intellectual and moral blindness, because many situations do not fit into our cognitive schemes. Hence, we cannot dominate them. Understanding freedom as relational involves the notion of significant space to give, room for all thoughts, colors, religions, nationalities. Freedom is osmosis among all human beings and political act of deliberating, deciding, and responding within our destined nature. It is about accepting that differences for other learning modes exist without measuring them on an ideal scale of fictitious values, creating a hierarchy as is the Western thought tendency. Yours and my being are in subsistence with all other human beings and in an infinity of interconnected entities that shape the universe. The concept of the human presence central positioning concludes nothing. Since existence is all relational, so is freedom. The quest for freedom informs the artistic practices of many of us live artists. To seek and practice relational freedom and contribute to positive societal changes, we work on different fronts, find moments of cohesion, and intersect each other's concern, urgency, and research. Live art is also activism in many senses. It is our way to expose our ideas in the foreground, in the first person, through our bodies as our materia prima, tools of expression. To the call of Untitled 2021, I'm pleased to introduce to this live artist think tank, live artists who I believe are contemporary crucial for their ideas, art, and mission, and who I believe can bring profound reflection with their arguments.